How many hours are left in your day? Liam blinked, taken aback by the peculiar question. He glanced up from his phone, where he'd been scrolling through an endless feed of cat videos and half-hearted motivational quotes. The man before him, the clockmaker, had eyes that seemed to pierce through time itself. His workshop, filled with the ticking and talking of countless clocks, seemed like a place out of a different era. Liam had wandered into the shop on a whim, escaping the blazing sun outside. He'd been meandering through his days lately, driven by a sense of purposelessness that gnawed at him like a persistent itch. The world outside moved at a frenetic pace, but inside the shop, time seemed to slow down, almost as if it were being measured differently here. How many hours are left in your day? The clockmaker repeated, his voice gentle but insistent. Liam shrugged, feeling an odd mix of embarrassment and curiosity. I don't know. 24, I guess. Same as everyone else. The clockmaker smiled, a kind but knowing smile that made Liam feel seen in a way he hadn't in a long time. Not quite. You see, while we all start with the same 24 hours, how we use them differs greatly. Some people seem to accomplish so much more than others. Have you ever wondered why? Liam had wondered. Often, in fact, he'd marvel at friends who juggle jobs, hobbies, social lives, and still manage to stay fit and healthy. Meanwhile, he struggled to get out of bed before noon and rarely finished any of the numerous projects he started. It was as if he were trapped in a cycle of laziness he couldn't break free from. The clockmaker beckoned him to follow, leading him deeper into the workshop. Clocks of every size and shape adorned the walls, their hands moving in silent synchrony. The further they went, the more intricate and beautiful the timepieces became, each one a testament to the art of precision and dedication. You remind me of a young man I once knew, the clockmaker said as they walked. He too was lost in a sea of wasted time, unable to find the discipline to anchor himself. But he found his way. Perhaps his story might help you find yours. Liam was intrigued. He found himself wanting to know more about this mysterious young man and how he had overcome his struggles. The clockmaker's shop, with its aura of timeless wisdom, felt like the right place to start seeking answers. What's his story? Liam asked, genuinely interested. The clockmaker stopped before a particularly grand clock, its golden pendulum swinging with a mesmerizing rhythm. He placed a hand on the clock, as if drawing strength from its steady beat. His name was Ethan, and he, like you, was once adrift in the currents of laziness and indecision. But through a series of remarkable events and encounters, he learned the true value of time and how to master it. Sit with me, and I'll tell you everything. And so, in the heart of the clockmaker's workshop, surrounded by the symphony of ticking clocks, Liam sat down to listen to a story that would change his life forever. Ethan, much like Liam, had always struggled with laziness. Despite being bright and full of potential, he lacked the drive to see anything through. He'd start projects with great enthusiasm, only to abandon them halfway. His room was littered with half-read books, unfinished models, and discarded hobbies. In his small town, people had begun to whisper about him. Such a shame, they'd say. So much talent, wasted. His parents, both hard-working individuals, were at their wits' end. They tried everything: encouragement, strict rules, even threats. But nothing seemed to work. One day, after yet another argument with his parents, Ethan found himself wandering the streets aimlessly. He ended up at the old clock tower at the edge of town, a place he used to visit as a child. The tower had always fascinated him, its grand architecture and the rhythmic chime of its bells. As he stood there, lost in thought, the door to the clock tower creaked open. Out stepped a man with a kind face and a pair of spectacles perched on his nose. It was the clockmaker, known to the townsfolk as Mr. Harold, a man of few words but great wisdom. You look like a young man with time on his hands, Mr. Harold said, a twinkle in his eye. Ethan sighed. Too much time, I suppose. Mr. Harold studied him for a moment before speaking. Would you like to come in? There's something I think you should see. Curiosity piqued, Ethan followed him inside. The interior of the tower was a labyrinth of gears, pendulums, and cogs, all working in perfect harmony. The sight was mesmerizing, and for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt a spark of interest. Mr. Harold led him to a small room at the top of the tower. In the center of the room stood a magnificent clock, unlike any Ethan had ever seen. It had 12 different faces, each one displaying time in a unique manner, one for seconds, one for minutes, one for hours, and so on. The most intriguing part was that each face seemed to move at its own pace, yet they all worked together seamlessly. "This is the clock of life," Mr. Harold explained. "It represents the different aspects of our existence and how they are interconnected." Many people struggle with time management because they don't understand this connection. Ethan was captivated. "How does it work?" Mr. Harold smiled. "It's a bit of a mystery, even to me, but what I do know is that it teaches us the value of time and how to balance it. Would you like to learn more?" Ethan nodded eagerly. For the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this clockmaker and his extraordinary timepiece held the key to overcoming his laziness. Mr. Harold began Ethan's lessons with something simple yet profound: the power of routine. He explained that establishing a daily routine was the foundation of discipline and productivity. "Every successful person has a routine," he said. "It's not about doing extraordinary things every day, but about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well." He showed Ethan how to create a daily schedule, breaking his day into manageable chunks of time. Ethan was skeptical at first, but he decided to give it a try. He started small, setting aside specific times for waking up, eating, studying, and exercising. The first few days were challenging. Ethan's old habits of procrastination and distraction were hard to break. But with Mr. Harold's guidance and encouragement, he slowly began to see the benefits. Having a routine gave him a sense of purpose and direction. He found that he was more focused and less prone to wasting time. Mr. Harold also taught him the importance of starting the day with a positive mindset. "How you begin your day sets the tone for the rest of it," he said. "Start with something that energizes you, whether it's a morning walk, a healthy breakfast, or a few minutes of meditation." Ethan chose to start his days with a short run around the clock tower. At first, it was a struggle to get out of bed early, but soon he found that the fresh air and exercise invigorated him. It became a habit, one that he looked forward to each morning. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan's routine became second nature. He noticed a significant improvement in his productivity and overall well-being. The structure and predictability of his days gave him a sense of control he had never felt before. Mr. Harold was pleased with his progress. "You're doing well, Ethan. Remember, discipline is not about strict rules and punishment, but about consistency and commitment. Keep at it, and you'll see even greater results." Ethan felt a surge of confidence. For the first time in a long while, he believed that he could change his ways and become the disciplined person he always wanted to be. With his routine in place, Ethan's next lesson was about focus. Mr. Harold explained that in a world filled with distractions, the ability to concentrate on a single task was a rare and valuable skill. "Multitasking is a myth," he said. "Our brains are not designed to handle multiple complex tasks at the same time. To be truly productive, you need to focus on one thing at a time." He introduced Ethan to the concept of deep work, a state of intense concentration where one can produce high-quality work without distractions. To achieve this state, Mr. Harold advised him to create a dedicated workspace, free from interruptions and temptations. Ethan set up a small desk in his room, away from his bed and other distractions. He removed anything that might divert his attention, such as his phone and unnecessary gadgets. It was a simple setup, but it was enough. Mr. Harold also taught him techniques to improve his focus. One of the most effective was the Pomodoro technique, where one works for a set amount of time, usually 25 minutes, followed by a short break. This method helped Ethan maintain his concentration without feeling overwhelmed. At first, staying focused for even 25 minutes was a challenge. Ethan's mind would wander, and he'd find himself reaching for his phone or getting up for a snack. But with practice, he gradually improved. The short breaks between work sessions allowed him to recharge and return to his tasks with renewed energy. Another technique Mr. Harold recommended was mindfulness meditation. By practicing mindfulness, Ethan learned to quiet his mind and stay present in the moment. This helped him become more aware of his thoughts and distractions, making it easier to refocus when his mind started to drift. As Ethan honed his ability to focus, he noticed a significant increase in his productivity. Tasks that once took hours to complete were now finished in a fraction of the time. He felt a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction that spurred him to keep improving. Mr. Harold was impressed with his progress. Focus is a powerful tool, Ethan. It allows you to channel your energy and creativity into meaningful work. Remember, the quality of your work matters more than the quantity. Keep practicing, and you'll achieve great things. Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude towards the Clockmaker. His lessons were transforming not just his daily habits, but his entire outlook on life. For the first time, he felt in control of his time and his destiny. Despite his progress, Ethan still struggled with procrastination. There were days when he found it hard to start his tasks, even with his routine and focus techniques. He confided in Mr. Harold, who nodded understandingly. Procrastination is a common challenge, Mr. Harold said, but it's not about laziness. It's often about fear of failure, fear of the unknown, or even fear of success. To overcome it, you need to understand and address these fears. He taught Ethan several strategies to combat procrastination. The first was the 2-minute rule. If a task could be done in 2 minutes or less, Ethan was to do it immediately. This simple rule helped him clear many small tasks that would otherwise pile up and become overwhelming. For larger tasks, Mr. Harold introduced the concept of breaking it down. Instead of viewing a task as one daunting whole, Ethan learned to divide it into smaller, manageable steps. This made it easier to start and maintain momentum. Another technique was the 5-minute start. Whenever Ethan felt resistance to starting a task, he would commit to working on it for just 5 minutes. More often than not, once he got started, he found it easier to continue. Mr. Harold also emphasized the importance of self-compassion. Don't be too hard on yourself when you procrastinate. Acknowledge it, understand why it happened, and move on. Guilt and self-criticism only make it harder to break the cycle. Ethan applied these strategies diligently. He found that understanding his fears and breaking tasks into smaller steps made them less intimidating. The 2-minute rule and 5-minute start helped him overcome the initial resistance to getting things done. Gradually, procrastination became less of a problem. Ethan felt more in control of his actions and more confident in his ability to tackle tasks. The sense of accomplishment from completing tasks, big or small, motivated him to keep going. Mr. Harold was pleased with his progress. You've come a long way, Ethan. Overcoming procrastination is not about eliminating it completely, but about managing it effectively. You've learned to take action despite your fears, and that's a valuable skill. Ethan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He was no longer the lazy, aimless person he used to be. With Mr. Harold's guidance, he had developed the discipline and focus to make the most of his time. Ethan's journey was far from over. While he had made significant progress, there were still challenges to face. Mr. Harold's next lesson was about the value of persistence. Success is not a straight path, Mr. Harold said. It's filled with obstacles, setbacks, and failures. The key is to keep going, even when things get tough. Persistence is what separates those who achieve their goals from those who give up. He shared stories of famous inventors, artists, and entrepreneurs who faced countless failures before achieving success. These stories inspired Ethan and made him realize that setbacks were a natural part of the journey. Mr. Harold also taught him practical strategies to cultivate persistence. One of the most important was setting clear, achievable goals. When you have a clear vision of what you want to achieve, it's easier to stay motivated and keep going, he explained. Ethan learned to set both short-term and long-term goals. The short-term goals gave him immediate targets to strive for, while the long-term goals kept him focused on the bigger picture. This balance helped him stay motivated and persistent. Another strategy was to celebrate small victories. Mr. Harold encouraged Ethan to acknowledge and reward himself for his achievements, no matter how small. This positive reinforcement made the journey more enjoyable and motivated him to keep pushing forward. Ethan also learned the importance of resilience. Mr. Harold taught him techniques to cope with stress and setbacks, such as deep breathing, positive self-talk, and seeking support from friends and family. These techniques helped Ethan bounce back from failures and stay on track. As Ethan applied these lessons, he noticed a change in his mindset. He became more resilient and determined. When faced with challenges, he no longer felt discouraged. Instead, he saw them as opportunities to learn and grow. Mr. Harold was proud of his progress. Persistence is a powerful trait, Ethan. It enables you to overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Remember, success is not about never failing, but about never giving up. Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude. The clockmaker's wisdom had transformed his life in ways he never thought possible. He was no longer the lazy, aimless person he used to be. With discipline, focus, and persistence, he had become a person who made the most of his time and potential. As Ethan's journey with Mr. Harold neared its end, there was one final lesson to learn: the importance of balance. Time is a precious resource, Mr. Harold said, but it's not just about productivity and achievements. It's also about enjoying life, building relationships, and taking care of yourself. Balance is the key to a fulfilling life. He explained that while discipline and focus were important, it was equally important to make time for relaxation, hobbies, and loved ones. Overworking oneself could lead to burnout and negatively impact overall well-being. Ethan reflected on his life and realized that he had been so focused on overcoming laziness and becoming productive that he had neglected other aspects of his life. He decided to make a conscious effort to find balance. Mr. Harold taught him techniques to achieve balance. One of the most effective was time blocking. By allocating specific times for work, rest, and leisure, Ethan could ensure that he was giving attention to all areas of his life. He also learned the importance of setting boundaries. Mr. Harold encouraged him to set clear boundaries between work and personal time, and to respect those boundaries. This helped Ethan create a healthier work-life balance. Another important aspect was self-care. Mr. Harold emphasized the need to take care of one's physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Ethan started incorporating self-care practices into his routine, such as regular exercise, healthy eating, and mindfulness meditation. As Ethan applied these lessons, he noticed a positive change in his overall well-being. He felt more relaxed, happier, and more fulfilled. The balance he had achieved allowed him to enjoy life while still being productive and disciplined. Mr. Harold was pleased with his progress. "You've learned well, Ethan. Balance is the key to a fulfilling life. It's not about doing everything perfectly, but about finding harmony between the different aspects of your life." Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude towards the clockmaker. His wisdom had transformed Ethan's life in ways he never thought possible. He was no longer the lazy, aimless person he used to be. With discipline, focus, persistence, and balance, he had become a person who made the most of his time and potential. Ethan's journey with Mr. Harold had come to an end, but the lessons he had learned would stay with him forever. He thanked the clockmaker for his guidance and wisdom, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and admiration. Mr. Harold smiled. "The journey is yours now, Ethan. Use the time you have wisely and make the most of it. Remember, time is a gift, and how you choose to spend it defines your life." With a renewed sense of purpose, Ethan left the clock tower and returned to his life. He continued to apply the lessons he had learned, becoming more disciplined, focused, and balanced. He achieved his goals and built a fulfilling life, one that he was proud of. Years later, Ethan became a successful entrepreneur, known for his innovative ideas and disciplined approach. He often spoke about the clockmaker and the lessons he had learned, inspiring others to make the most of their time and potential. One day, as he walked through the town, he noticed a young man standing outside the clock tower, looking lost and aimless. Ethan smiled, recognizing himself in the young man. He approached him and asked, "How many hours are left in your day?" The young man looked up, surprised by the question. Ethan smiled and said, "Come with me. There's something I think you should see." And so, the legacy of the clockmaker's wisdom continued, passed down from one generation to the next. The lessons of discipline, focus, persistence, and balance would help countless others overcome laziness and make the most of their time, just as they had helped Ethan. For in the end, time is the greatest gift we have, and how we choose to spend it defines our lives.